I was recruited at a very early stage. So I went to Lesotho, 1980, the beginning, I think it was around March. Was recruited to the Communist Party there, then, and worked in and for the Communist Party until the unbanning, and in the ANC underground structures. Of course, the two were interlinked, but separately organized, or structures were separate, as in reporting lines and our communication. So in 1983, UDF was formed. The beginning of that year, I was arrested and held in solitary confinement. And that arrest happened because our cover, as it were, was blown in Lesotho, because one of our comrades was, whom I recruited to our cell, was arrested after his biography was found in Lesotho 6 months after he'd been there. So it was supposed to have been encrypted and forwarded. So it was found in his handwriting. So of course it pointed directly to where that had come from, who he was involved with. So he was arrested, and myself and another comrade, Hedley King, were arrested a month later. So of course at that point we had assumed that it had nothing to do with us, because our rule of secret work was that if in a cell any one person is compromised or arrested or facing imminent arrest, if there was a breach of security, or there's been exposure at any level, because we were further away from the frontline areas. So we had 72 hours within which to leave, to safeguard the other comrades. Of course, in Joburg, KZN, it would have been 48 hours or less, because they could cross the border earlier than, or sooner, because of the geographies. So when the comrade who was in the cell with us was arrested in the Eastern Cape and was still holding out, and there was no connection to us, we had assumed that it related to work he was doing in the Eastern Cape, and he was involved in above ground work in the Eastern Cape as well. So we were working on both levels. Largely, I think, because there were fewer of us, and we were tasked to build the ANC structure. That was the main mission, was to build the ANC structures in the coloured community. So a month later, when we were arrested, the one comrade I referred to, Michael Kutsia, he subsequently passed a few years back. I think it was 2015 that he passed. 2013 or 2015. You know, my memory lost that point. And so he was sentenced to prison, to a common law prison in Allendale, and the other comrade was sentenced to Haldesroom prison. I was put back in detention because there was no statement, so I could not be convicted because there was no confession or no statement made. So my punishment was back into detention. And coming out of detention, on the very day I was released, I was taken to court because the state claimed that I damaged state property because I'd written on the cell walls. So they'd given me or insisted that I should make a statement. Of course, I'd refused to. And then gave me a writing pad with a pen and said, well, maybe I should think about that. And when I'm on my own in the cell, and had nothing else other than a Bible. We were not allowed anything. I think the men were given Rubik's cubes that came out then, but I was not given anything. The guards were also prohibited from having any magazines, even their study materials. You had a guard in your cell, like in a cage in your cell, to watch you 24/7, because that was after Neil Agate was killed in detention. So the assumption was that we commit suicide. We don't get killed in detention. So just to ensure that we do not slip on a bar of soap or hang ourselves, we were put under 24-hour watch. So I had, having been given the pen and the notepad, written whatever I could, poetry. There wasn't a white spot left on the writing pad. So of course the next place was the walls. And you know, the walls in the cells have these bubble walls. So go to etch out whatever. I don't know if it's still there. It was held in Sea Point, cell number 9 and cell number 10 at the Sea Point police station. So when I was released from detention on the day, I was taken straight to court to stand trial for damage to state property. So the lawyer who came to represent us, of our progressive lawyers, so at that point I said, no, it's okay, I would defend myself. I was 20 years old. So because I knew that the regulations under which we were arrested did not allow for anything on our person, and that is why we were put under 24-hour guard. So they were not supposed to have given me a pen, for that matter. So I stood up and defended myself, and I said, basically I was taken in and out of the cell for interrogation. They had access, and anyone else, the police, the security branch, had access to my cell. So, because they couldn't prove my handwriting because of the bubble, what do you call them, the cement on the bubble wall, so you can't, it's not a smooth surface.
Yes.
So when you write on that, it distorts your writing, right? Yeah. So I argued that I could not have, because that was not allowed under their regulation. So the only people who could have done that would be the security police. So the magistrate then agreed, and it says the court can only speculate who is responsible, but it's not the duty of the court to speculate. So I got off that charge. I thought, okay, that actually was very empowering for me to stand up, and I know that the lawyers were there to support, they were behind me, but to be able to confront the apartheid system, their legal system, and to go toe-to-toe, but outsmart them in every way. And it was also important for us to show that morally, our morals are higher than theirs. Our humanity must be higher than theirs. Our intellect should be higher than theirs. Because after all, apartheid seems very ridiculous today, when that memory of standing up because this land is ours and we know that we can take it, left that indelible mark of confidence in who we are as a people, and our being as a people, and our ability to contest power because of the dehumanizing effect they wanted to have on us. And for us to counteract that, we had to become even more human than our oppressors, who themselves were inhumane in every aspect of their intellect and their physicality and their actions. When, after detention and sort of my reworking my legend, as we call it, so having to survive back in the underground and work sort of in mass organizations, I then completed my studies and then got a posting. And I was very, very excited to get a posting at Bonteheuwel High, because I schooled there. Needless to say that the principal, after 76, when I went back, because I left for a short period, I left for Joburg, and when I came back to the school, the principal then, Mr. Clark, said, no, they have peace at the school. So Holtzman can't come back to the school. So I had to go and find a school in another place, in Kensington, whilst I lived in Bonteheuwel. Anyway, that's another story, just another sojourn to just take up another challenge. But so when I got the posting at Bonteheuwel, I was quite excited, because Bonteheuwel High was also I thought, not only a radical school, but one of the most radical schools in Bonteheuwel, but also on the Cape Flats. So Bonteheuwel High protested the longest, if not, or among the longest, if not the longest, in 76. That was the level and the spirit of defiance and resistance. In the 80s, the same, when boycotts happened there. So it wasn't unusual that the first victim who fell in 76 was Christopher Turuta, who happened to have been a close friend. We were in the same standard, same grade, spoke to each other the morning, still stood around the pole at Bonteheuwel High. As we were discussing, we were at school quite early, because that day we were going to have a joint march from our school to Arcadia and then to Monnickendam. But en route to Arcadia, that is where he was shot and killed. So those were moments that stood out every moment that increased my determination to engage in the struggle, to the extent that I never thought about a career. I only thought about what we needed to do to change the system, even if it costed me my life. So, and I'm not being romantic about it. That's the way I felt. I mean, I still feel. We have greater possibilities to exercise freedom. And then where there was no prospect of that government, the apartheid government changing, we knew we had to do it. We had to take it. We needed to take it back. So, and I was quite psyched, I think, emotionally and psychologically for that. So Christopher Truter and his killing of somebody I knew. And then coming back after completing my teaching diploma, I got the posting at Bonteheuwel High. Teachers were required, as they still are, to be at school 2 days before you're given your register. There's orientation. So that was all settled in. I'm coming back to my old school and to Bonteheuwel. You know, Bonteheuwel is, of course, the liberated zone. And first day went well. Mr. Clark, the same Mr. Clark was there, who didn't want me back at the school. So the next day, it was sort of still in the morning, so it wasn't even a day and a half, when he called me and he said, "But why didn't you tell me that you're banned from teaching?" I didn't know that. So the security police in the meanwhile visited there. So he presented that as fact, as if I should have known. And how would I have known anyway? So that was, and so when I heard that, I thought, all right, consulted with comrades who then felt, and especially in Bonteheuwel, that that was going to be an issue for them. They were going to take it up and they were going to demand my reinstatement. And because of the moment we were at, I consulted further and thought it not necessary to put the school that was just getting into rebuilding and on a path where there was a consolidation for me to disrupt that path. So I called on my comrade and friend, Bonita Bennett, who is now Bonita Wieder, who was also an English teacher. And then I offered as a compromise to the progressive community, including the students there. And that's a school, in fact, where Ashley Creel, at that point, he was in exile. So I'd offered a progressive teacher who was available, and that was a compromise we made with the Bonteheuwel community, that they would get a replacement of a progressive teacher. Let us not make it about me. There's other things that we can do. And then I moved to Transkei to teach. Also, that was at the period of opening up as comrades were coming back from exile. So it all had a purpose. It wasn't sort of a point of stagnation or a point of sort of retreat, but advancing in different ways. So, but I see that as sort of nearly, not necessarily hiccups in the path of resistance and the path of struggles. They're learning points, whether it was detention, whether it was repression in the various forms, to sharpen the way we do things, maybe to change tact, maybe to look at our methodologies, or maybe to move out of the space for that relay to happen and taken over by someone or somebody else to take forward the struggle. But it's never and can never be about the self. And if you're not there, that things will not happen, because the struggle is more than, isn't it? And so must be the future, should be more than. It's all of us.